You know, it passed by without too much fanfare that today was Holocaust Remembrance Day. Holocaust Remembrance Day is so that people remember that at one point in human history, a government decided to control the population so much that it decided to lock up one group of people based on a race and a religion, lock them up in concentration camps, and then in the end, attempt to exterminate them. State-sponsored extermination, genocide. And it was called the Holocaust. It was reported up to 6 million Jewish people died, God knows how many. They actually institutionalized the act of genocide. It was an incredible moment in human history because in order to get something like that done, you would have to create such a huge propaganda machine and then intimidate and convince the people of your nation that murdering someone, throwing them into a labor camp, and then eventually shoving them into a gas chamber in an oven was good for society, doing it en masse. That's what Nazi Germany did. They convinced the German population that Jewish people, Eastern Europeans, homosexuals were all enemies of the state and were a threat to Germany. So great that it had to be eradicated by any means. It takes a very complicated and sophisticated operation to do something like that. The start of that propaganda machine to generate that kind of fear in the German people was in 1932. In 1932, the Nazis gained official power in Germany and became Nazi Germany. Some say it was a little early as 29, but 32 is really considered the important date. It was shortly thereafter that Adolf Hitler began something called a Ministry of Propagandise, as in German you pronounce it. It was propaganda. Ministry of Truth or Bureau of Information. And he asked a man named Joseph Goebbels to head it up. And the first thing Goebbels did was created the monstrous lie that the German people were threatened by Jewish people and Eastern Europeans, that the racial harmony of the country was in danger. The danger was to German democracy. That's what was claimed by the propaganda ministry and Joseph Goebbels. That's why we remember the Holocaust, because what happened. And of all days, today, the Holocaust Remembrance Day, Joe Biden creates the Disinformation Governance Board, headed by Nina Jankowicz, who's supposedly an expert on misinformation and global initiatives, puts her in charge in order to determine who is spreading disinformation as a Department of Homeland Security Bureau and to clean up the internet. This day of all days. Talk about bad timing. Talk about being tone deaf to problems on the internet. Our founding fathers, the framers of our Constitution, wrote a certain Bill of Rights, the amendments to our Constitution. They established the rules and the ways that our government would be built, but then they put in these amendments which limited government's power to accomplish its goals that were spelled out in the main body of the Constitution. One of them, the First Amendment, was a guarantee to prevent government from limiting the speech of individuals. It guaranteed a free press. It guaranteed people to assemble. It didn't say government is going to monitor it, control it, It said one thing. Congress shall make no law, not some laws, not a few laws, shall make limited laws. No, no, no. Congress shall make no law that will limit the speech of the American people. Now, you can make the argument when Twitter was a public company and run by leftists that Twitter's servers are their property and therefore they can limit the speech on people on servers, and there's a legal point to be made there. But the First Amendment is very clear about the actions of government. The federal government, Congress. Joe Biden did exactly what the First Amendment was designed to prevent. Create a Bureau of Information, Disinformation, a governance board in of all places, the Department of Homeland Security, which means they have the strength and the will and the manpower to enforce their laws. He didn't do it as a function of journalists. He didn't do it as a function of government. He did it as what? Department of Homeland Security, which is essentially another name for what Germany did in the 30s. Gestapo. Homeland Security. Their fatherland. I have warned you about the Patriot Act. Not that the people that created it were anything like Goebbels or Hitler, but that's where these laws go. It can become something larger than what it was originally designed. And it's now growing to the point where a president feels the need to create a ministry of truth, as Orwell described it. A department that is to determine what is officially the right thing to say. Officially, the government line. What truth is. Of all the people that we entrust truth to, the framers of our Constitution recognize government should not be one of them. That was the whole point of the First Amendment. To prevent government from forming a ministry of truth or a ministry of propaganda. Department of Homeland Security violates your Fourth Amendment rights, violates your Fifth Amendment rights, and now violating your First Amendment rights. Here we go again. This is a little too close to Orwell. I know in the past I've said, hey, listen, this could happen. It's happening. Why this isn't the lead story on the news? I don't know. Should be. Every news journalist organization should be outraged at the creation of this kind of control by government. Government does not have sole purview of the truth in a nation which is supposed to be about free speech, the free dissemination of ideas. The press, the Fourth Estate, they're entrusted to investigate government, to expose the lies that come from governments. There is nothing less truthful than government and bureaucracies. We know this. We know this is a matter of history. We know this is a matter, of course, from the framers of our Constitution. We have ingrained it in our Constitution, in the entire being of an American citizen is based on the free expression of ideas. We were built from 1776 forward at the individual and self-governance thumbing their nose at kings and authorities. And of all days, one of the things about the Holocaust is that while children are educated in what happened, they aren't educated as to why. Even the German citizens, the Jewish German citizens, as they were marching into the gas chambers, never believed it was happening. That's why they did it. It wasn't that they were threatened at the point of a gun. It's that they would never believe that the German government, their own government, would stoop to such actions. They were told first to live in ghettos for their own safety, for their own protection, and protection against disease, atrocities, bullying, crime, whatever fear that was spread by Goebbels. And then they were marched into these camps and told you're helping and working off your debt to German and the people, that you need to be responsible for all the atrocities that you've done, all the terrible things that you're responsible for. And then in the end, we're marched into gas chambers and massacred. And it only became possible because of a ministry of truth, because of a Joseph Goebbels, because of that mindset that government will tell you what's true, even after the war, as the American army marched into some of these camps like Auschwitz and Dachau, and were horrified at what they found. They went back into the villages that surrounded these camps, and they told the Germans, hey, what was going on here? Why did you allow this to happen? There are millions that have been killed in these camps. Oh, no, it wasn't. That's not true. They had to march. There are videos on YouTube of the armies marching German citizens from the towns around Auschwitz and Dachau into the camps to tell them, to show them what had happened. And they didn't believe it. You'd see films of these people, these villagers, laughing and joking like it's a day off from work. And then when they got there, it was incredible, the change in demeanor of people. They didn't realize. They never knew. At least they claimed that. And I believe them. Because they had been so brainwashed. Because government was the sole purveyor of truth in Nazi Germany. And we're doing that again today? Did they learn nothing? Certainly no one in Biden's administration, no one in the administration has spoken up and said, wait a minute, that's not a good idea. This is how we get into trouble. Not to mention the fact that it's outright unconstitutional. It's a clear violation of the First Amendment. Those laws were set there for a reason. Those are constitutional rights. That means you own that right, not government. Only you can decide what freedom of speech is, what truth is. There is no such thing as misinformation. There is only information. And it is incumbent upon you, horribly as that sounds, to decide what is true or not. It is not for Nina Jankowicz and the Ministry of Truth that Joe Biden is trying to create, the officially named Disinformation Governance Board. Appropriately named if you think about it. How many untruths have come out from this administration that have been proven to be true? How many times have you seen stories in the mass media? And people like me come out and say, no, that's not true, and we're called conspiracy theorists, and then 12 weeks later, it's true. How many times were we told that the Hunter Biden story, of which Nina Jankowicz was a key player, was untrue, was fraudulent, was a Trump disinformation campaign, has turned out completely true? How many times? How many times does it have to happen? Are we going to be in that situation 20 years from now? Are we going to be in a situation where they form labor camps for people who just don't agree with the government? Are they going to create thought police like they had in Orwell's book? How far will this administration go if they're willing to do a plainly unconstitutional act to create this bureau? How far will they go? AOC herself said, oh, well, what you need is re-education camps, if you remember. Joe Stalin had a ministry of truth. And now Joe Biden. 3 leaders. Is this the country that you thought you would be living in? And then I'm talking to both people on the right and the left. Do you think this is a good idea? If you do, then you have been so badly brainwashed and you have been so badly educated that you're the problem. Somebody saying the earth is flat or some other wacko idea is not a problem. Not in today's society, with the advent of information at our fingertips that would boggle the mind of people 50 years ago. That's not the problem. The problem is there's now people that want to control that information and control what you think and what you say. I can't think of a more anti-American idea than that. We hung people in Nuremberg for doing that. Let's not go down that path again. Orwell's 1984 was not a blueprint for success. It was a warning. We need to move on. Speaking of conspiracy theories that have been proven true, something came out of the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial, which I found astonishing that no one's covering. We'll be right back.